abbreviated starts, it's just you go. You're a full-fledged dude now.
A lot of similarities to Kevin Brown, back with that heavy two-seamer that he used to have with the slider.
Okay, there you go. That was a national broadcast last night. Red Sox beat the Chicago Cubs 5-4 in the last inning, but make no bones about it. No question about it. The story last night was Tanner Houck, and more importantly, it's a story for the Red Sox so far in this 2024 season. We're going to open up the phone lines right away. 617-779-0985. Again, you want to talk baseball, now is your chance to do it. Because the Bruins will play tomorrow night. That game at 7 o'clock tomorrow night, Jimmy, right? Right here on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
With pregame at 6:30.
So we are going to have abbreviated programming really for much of the week.
We're going to have extended Felger and Maz on Tuesday.
So there you go. Right. There's no baseball hour tomorrow night at all, in fact. So because, again, the show will be remote from Hurricanes in anticipation of Bruins Game 5. So there will be limited opportunities to talk about baseball, which, again, brings us back to Tanner Houck and to the Red Sox. 617-779-0985. If you want a baseball season, if you ask me, in fact, you know what, before I even say that, here's what I'm going to do. Let me give you a couple of statistics to start the show. And then I want you to tell me which is more important. Okay, and those two statistics are, when Tanner Houck starts this year, the Red Sox are 4-2. Okay, which is a .667 winning percentage. When Trevor Story or Ceddanne Rafaela starts at shortstop, the Red Sox are 12-6, which is a .667 winning percentage. So what I'm trying to get at is this. When the Red Sox have had a representative shortstop on the field, they have basically been pretty good. I mean, they were 6-2 with Story in 8 games. They've gone 6-4 with Rafaela. There's a little asterisk there, which I'm going to give you in a minute. So you add them up, they're 12-6 combined. And in the case of Rafaela, he became the full-time regular shortstop. Let's see, that was 9 games ago. And they've gone 6-3. So 6-3 is a .667 winning percentage. Rafaela and Story combined, .667 winning percentage. Tanner Houck, 4-2, .667 winning percentage. So to me, the two most important developments on this team have been the emergence of Tanner Houck and Ceddanne Rafaela taking over at shortstop. Now, I'm just going by the math, but I think that the Red Sox have stabilized since Rafaela became the shortstop. Tanner Houck has basically been good all year, save for one start. So, Jimmy Stewart, let me ask you, and the listeners, I would like them to chime in. Which is more important, stabilizing the defense with Rafaela at shortstop or the emergence of Tanner Houck as a front-end starter?
Stabilizing the defense, because the Red Sox currently lead the American League in ground ball outs. So infield defense is a priority because it lengthens out your rotation. So instead of Tanner Houck, for example, having to worry about his infield defense, he can pitch to contact. He can pitch to a hitter's weakness if need be, and understand that the people behind him are generally going to be able to field the baseball, especially if he's a ground ball pitcher.
Okay, I'm going Tanner Houck.
Okay.
And I'm not sure how many people understand or realize how important a development it is this early in the season for Tanner Houck to be pitching like a frontline starter. And dare I say an ace. David Cohn right there called him a dude. Called him an ace. Tanner effing Houck. Who saw that coming?
The Red Sox, obviously, and Tom Warner.
So I'm not even sure they could have predicted this. And I have a lot of feelings about this particular story. So let me just read to you where Houck ranks in the major leagues thus far in a certain number of categories. And again, these are not American League rankings. These are major league rankings for starting pitchers. Major league. Tanner Houck right now ranks first in WAR, 5th in innings pitched, 5th in ERA, 8th in ground ball percentage, 4th in walks per 9 innings, 7th in strikeouts, 5th in strikeout to walk ratio, which is a big one, and 3rd in fewest home runs allowed. Okay, he's only given up 1 home run. One thing the Red Sox have always had over their history, recent history, when they've been good, is a guy at the front end that allowed them to get away with murder in the rest of the rotation. Really. Go right up and down. Look it up historically. Starting in 1986, Clemens blossomed that year. That's when Roger Clemens, and by the way, Jimmy Stewart, do you remember the game that made Clemens Roger Clemens? 1986, early season, was the 20 strikeout game against the Seattle Mariners. Today's the anniversary.
I would call that the duel with Dominique night.
Okay, that's right. Was it the duel with Dominique night?
Yeah, Celtics Hawks. Game 7 was going up against Roger Clemens' 20 strikeout game, and there are people who claim to be at both.
I don't think it was Game 7 though. Double check. It was Game 2. I think.
Okay.
So, but nonetheless, the point, very few people saw it at the time, and nobody understood the magnitude of it. And I don't know whether the Tanner Houck story is comparable or not. But I'll tell you this: that if you go back to '86, Clemens to Pedro Martinez, to Kurt Schilling, to Josh Beckett, to John Lester. Okay, that is a line of aces, a line of kings like few other organizations in baseball have ever had in what amounted to a 40-year span. Okay, pretty close to 40 years. You had those guys at the front of your rotation. Since then, and Chris Sale after that, I should add him to the list. Since that time, the Red Sox haven't had a front-end starter. Not a real true ace. It might be the most important thing to have in building a contending team, is to have that guy at the front end of the rotation who can come in, give you 6 innings, maybe 7, every single time out and put your team in position to win. The flexibility and luxuries it affords a manager is off the charts. Same is true for the team as a whole. Once you have a guy that can win with some level of regularity, and again, 667 is plenty. So let me do the math for you. If Tanner Houck wins at a 667 clip, or if the Red Sox win at a 667 clip, every time Tanner Houck pitches, they will basically go 21-11. 21-11. Automatically, they're 10 games over 500. So their starting point is 86-76. The other 4 times, they just have to go 500 to finish with that win total. 86-76 get you in a playoff race. 86-76 get you in the hunt. And if you don't believe yet because it's too early, I get it. But if you're watching these games and you're watching Houck pitch, I think you should rapidly come to the conclusion that this is not a fluke. Now, he got bombed in the one game he didn't pitch well. He went against the Angels that night, had some bad defense. They also hit some rockets off him. But I would tell you, the other 5 times he's been out there, he's been filthy good. Filthy good. He's around the plate constantly. He's throwing everything for strikes. Last night, he threw 94 pitches in the game, 72 strikes, which is a career high. Before this season, Tanner Houck only had 4 games in which he had thrown as many as 62 strikes. 4 out of 41 starts. This year, he's done it 5 times in 6 games. Jimmy, let's play the comment we played at the beginning of the show. Let's play it again, because I want you to listen to David. If you don't want to believe me, don't believe me. Fine. No problem. I happen to believe that Houck looks like a completely different guy. I shouldn't say completely different, because his 2-seam fastball is pretty good, has always been good, and his slider has been off the charts good, always. So now you're saying, well, wait a minute, why did it take so long? Which I'll get to in a minute. But first, don't take my word for it. David Cohn, who knows a thing or two about pitching and pitched here for a year back in 2001. Again, here's what he said during the game watching Tanner Houck.
Tanner Houck has gone at least 5 2/3 in every start which the domino effect is you get your bullpen, rested. It sets you up for the next game, if not couple of games.
He's a dude now. There's no doubt about it. I mean, he's out there. The presence is there. The leash is there. Alex Cora said, "You're my guy. You go. This is your game." So there's no more pitch counts. There's no more abbreviated starts. It's just you go. You're a full-fledged dude now.
A lot of similarities to Kevin Brown, back with that heavy two-seamer that he used to have with the slider.
Now, again, Kevin Brown, many of you don't know, pitched, 20 years ago. He pitched for the Yankees back in 2004. But he
won a World Series with the Marlins, pitched a no-hitter.
Yeah, he was in the mid to late 90s, even a little before that, and then into the 2000s, and was one of the nastiest pitchers in baseball. At one point, Kevin Brown had the biggest contract in the history of the game. 7 years, I think it was at that time, for $15 million per year. So it was 7 for 105, which I know sounds like chump change now, but at the time it was the biggest contract in the history of the game. I don't think it's a horrible comparison. I think Tanner Houck right now is that good. I think he's been dominant. He works fast, quick outs. For this day and age, deep into the game. And a guy like that can completely change your team. Meanwhile, Rafael Devers is back in the lineup. Tyler O'Neill's back in the lineup. There were a couple other guys on the Red Sox roster, one in particular, who has absolutely blossomed. And maybe the most significant acquisition of the Chaim Bloom era. We'll get to that. And I'll also give you some of those details on Tanner Houck when we come back on the Baseball Hour.
Stay tuned for more of the Baseball Hour coming up on the Sports Hub.
Rips in a blast. Mike Talkman. Shades of Bernie Carbo in 75 going straight away center here. Ties it up.
Right? So look, again, the Red Sox won the game. It doesn't mean they were without their requisite amount of Red Sox stupidity, for lack of a better word. So Chris Martin, you heard them say this in the cup we just played at the very beginning, that Eduardo Perez. Red Sox dominated the game last night. It's 4-1. They get in the 8th inning. Houck comes out of the game. Chris Martin comes in. Houck actually left the game in the 7th. It's 4-1 at the time. Chris Martin gives up a couple of blue pits, and then Mike Talkman comes up and hits a 3-run home run into the center field seats. Now, that's the game part of it. Jimmy, can we play just the last little bit? The ball going into the seats and then the crowd reaction. Listen to the crowd reaction at Fenway Park last night.
Looks up, and it's out of here! Mike Talkman, a 3-run shot.
I hear cheers. Jimmy, what do you hear? You hear cheers?
To center, fairly deep. Duran back, looks up, and it's out of here!
Sounds like cheers to me.
Sounds like a Cubs fan base invaded Fenway Park again.
So this has been an ongoing problem at Fenway now for a couple of years. It's still happening. Last night, attendance in the ballpark, 32,052, according to the box score. Game took 2 hours and 34 minutes. Which, total aside here, by the way, I actually checked this out with MLB last week. The Red Sox average game this season, under 237. 236 and change. That was at the end of last week. So the game's now 237. How about that? 234 last night. Talkman hits a 3-run homer, and the crowd erupts. That's a home game, folks. So who do you want to blame for that? Ownership? You can. For putting a team on the field that maybe is not that appealing to you. At the same breath, they are 16-13, and right now, actually, I think there are a couple of check marks in their favor. I think there are a couple of things that look pretty promising for the Red Sox, not the least of which is Tanner Houck. But I'm happy to rip the Red Sox on Tanner Houck, too, for this reason. Tanner Houck is now 27 years old. 27. He was drafted in 2017, first-round pick, Dave Dombrowski. 6'5", 225, 230 pounds. Tanner Houck has always had the makeup and the stuff to be a good big league starter. That's why he was drafted in the first round. Any theories, Jimmy, on why it took so long?
Probably dedication on his behalf. And the Red Sox have an issue with developing pitchers.
They screwed him up. So I think it's this simple. They screwed him up. So, and some of this started under Dombrowski, but Houck came into the big leagues with a tremendous two-seam fastball, which are basically his two best pitches now. For whatever reason, and I want to talk to Matt McCarthy more about this later in the week, because McCarthy remembers this better than I do. For some reason, the Red Sox tried to change him. And they wanted him to become a power pitcher, a four-seam strikeout pitcher. So probably just because that's what the analytics were saying. We don't want the ball in play. We want a guy who can blow people away. They thought Houck could become more of a strikeout pitcher instead of a ground ball pitcher. They screwed him up. He sucked at it. Wasn't very good. And certainly had trouble making the adjustment. So after a while, you know what they did? They switched him back. Then they brought him up and started yanking him between the rotation and the bullpen because he didn't have a quote-unquote third pitch. So they scrapped his changeup and made him throw more of a split, which was inconsistent. Then he had some injuries, which isn't necessarily their fault. But again, the bouncing and the back and forth. You know what Houck has done? He basically went back to being the pitcher he was when he came out of college and now throws a modified grip instead of a pure split. And if you listen to this show last week, I theorized about this. I said, when you watch Tanner Houck pitch, I saw him deliver a pitch a couple of weeks ago that I said, that doesn't look like a split-fingered fastball. That looks like more of a changeup. So, Jimmy, if we could, there's a David Cohn comment on the changeup. I thought it looked more like I'm sorry, everyone calls it a split. To me, it looks more like a changeup. And I said, well, what the hell's going on here? Here's David Cohn.
Well, we heard about a splitter, and, it looks like a little bit of a hybrid grip, a little bit, whether you call it a splitter or a hard changeup, but it's very effective.
Okay. So what Cohn is basically saying what I said, that the grip is not a traditional split-fingered grip. You know why? Because he's not throwing it. He's throwing a change. Or as he said, a hybrid grip. At a minimum, it's some sort of combination of the two. Tanner Houck's going to be 27. He's just now figuring it out. This should have happened 3 years ago. 3 years ago. Now, nonetheless, it's a big development. No more important thing for the Red Sox this year than to have frontline pitching. It would just be nice if they could do it in a ballpark that was actually filled with Red Sox fans instead of people from other markets who come in, now that nobody's buying the tickets in Boston, who come in, buy the tickets, and take over the ballpark, which, frankly, I think is embarrassing for the entire city. Ownership and everyone else included, and that means you, too. John in the car. John, what do you got?
Hey, what's going on? So I was saying, with the fans coming to Fenway Park, do you think it's more of it being a destination ballpark? Because no one's going to Oakland to watch games. No other team's filling up that place. Unless you're the Mets fan base, you're not traveling like that to anywhere else. Why is Fenway getting filled up with these opposing teams' fan bases?
Well, John, you know the answer to that, and that's because it is the ballpark's a draw. But when the difference is that when the Red Sox were good, the fans in other markets couldn't afford the tickets here because they were in demand. So the secondary market ticket prices were exorbitant. It was a tougher ticket to get. So if you wanted to travel to Boston for the weekend, you could come here, but the tickets for the game were going to cost you out the ass. Now, the Red Sox aren't good, and you're not buying the tickets. So you know what? The people coming in here for the weekend are doing the same thing you used to do when you went to Tampa or to Baltimore or wherever else you went to watch the team. You said, you know what? It's actually cheaper to buy a plane ticket, stay in a hotel, go to Florida for the weekend and see the Red Sox play in Tampa. We can watch Pedro pitch down there because it costs us less than it does at Fenway Park or Camden Yards. The Orioles are good now, but back then they kind of sucked. In fact, they really sucked for a long period of time. Red Sox fans would travel down to Baltimore because it was an easier ticket. You could get a good seat in the ballpark, pay nothing for it, and see the Red Sox play down there. Whether you wanted to watch Pedro, Schilling, Beckett, Lester, whoever, that's where you went. Now, they're doing it to you. So remember when Red Sox fans used to go to an opposing ballpark and you'd hear a game in Oakland or you hear a game in Anaheim against the Angels? In many cases, because there were transplanted New Englanders in some of those places that are really far away. But the weekend series in Tampa or in Baltimore, you'd hear the crowd cheering when the Red Sox scored. It's because the other team sucked. And it was embarrassing for them, but Bostonians would go in and take over the ballpark. Well, now that's what's happening here. So you can certainly blame ownership and say, well, they haven't given us a worthwhile team. We're not going to go to the stadium. We're not going to support them. I would tell you right now, the Red Sox are 16-13. It's actually better than I thought they would be. And I'm not telling you have to believe. I'm just telling you that part of the problem is the fact that you don't believe. So ownership has to sell you something. They haven't. But when it sounds like that, you're really in no position to bitch about it. Because it's a reflection on you, too. 617-779-0985. I want to get to the biggest thing, or the best thing, that Chaim Bloom gave the Red Sox in retrospect. We'll touch on that. Kevin Majori's got your headlines.
Dansby. Swanson steps in. Houck got a 2-0 lead, and the game moves to the 5th inning. And Swanson rifles this one to right, going back. Abreu still going back. He reaches up and makes a great catch. Oh, what a play by Abreu in right field. Robbing Dansby Swanson.
Slicing away from him, too, as well. What a great route.
You're absolutely right, Cody. That's a difficult play to make. The warning track really deep here. A big warning track, and you know the wall's creeping up on you.
Couple of good defensive plays by the Red Sox in that game last night. Wilyer Abreu with that one. Oddly enough, there was one made by Emmanuel Valdez, who was acquired in the same trade from the Houston Astros. Valdez's days are numbered because Vaughn Grissom is coming back tomorrow night. That is the plan, that he will be activated from the injured list to make his Red Sox debut against the Giants at Fenway Park. So he'll be back at, or I say back at second base, but he'll be at second base. But Abreu has been quite a find for the Red Sox after that trade that sent Christian Vazquez to the Houston Astros at the trade deadline a couple of years ago. Just to give you some quick perspective, and then I'll get to your phone calls. Abreu, 12th out of 69 outfielders with the same number of plate appearances as him in OPS. Okay, minimum 70 plate appearances. Abreu, 12th out of 69 outfielders in OPS. And based on innings played in the field, among 126 outfielders, he is 6th in defensive runs saved. So the point is, Abreu, swinging the bat, playing defense. When the ball's hitting the air, he's fine. It's the ones on the ground that have given him trouble. I think he's got 3 errors this year, although he hasn't had one in a little while. So has been a little bit better of late. But you want to talk about the controversy surrounding that Christian Vazquez trade at the deadline a couple of years ago. Abreu was one of the key guys in that deal, along with Emmanuel Valdez. And, basically the OPS numbers for Abreu were the same last year at the end of the season. Right now, it looks like the guy can play. So you might have a legitimate outfielder. You got a couple of legitimate guys on the mound, maybe. These are the early developments. And if all of that holds up and the Red Sox can get Tristan Casas back at some point and Devers can get rolling, you might have a legit baseball season. You just might. Back to the phones. Mike is in Weymouth. Mike, what do you got?
Hey, Mass. I just want to take up a little note. You're blaming the Sox fans for not wanting to show up to Fenway. Why would I want to show up to Fenway right now when ownership's not putting any money into the team? I was offered 4 free tickets the other day, but it's still going to cost me $400 worth of concessions to go in there and watch a spring training lineup kick the ball all over the field. So until they put money back into the team, I'm done. I'm not stepping foot in that dump.
Yeah, Mike, I'm not telling you to go to the game. I'm just telling you that if you don't want to go to the game, don't. I don't want to hear you bitching about the fact that Cubs fans have overrun the ballpark. That's all I'm telling you. It's one or the other. For years. And this might be one of the great myths about Boston in some ways. For years, I have heard how Red Sox fans are the greatest fans in baseball. I never thought I would see the day where the ballpark was overrun by opposing fans. And it happened last year over and over and over again. It happened when the Dodgers came in. It happened when the Mets came in. It happened when the Rangers came in on the 4th of July. And on that one, I was in the ballpark myself. So I just don't want to hear about how great Red Sox fans are and how much nobody loves their team more than the Red Sox. Because I don't think the same issues happening in St. Louis when an opposing team goes in there, despite the fact that the Cardinals sucked last year and people are overrunning the ballpark. I don't think that's happening. So you don't want to go? Don't go. I'm not telling you to go. I'm not telling you to go or not go. I'm just telling you, I don't want to hear you bitching about the fact that Fenway's being overrun by visiting fans. You don't want to pay for the product? Don't. But I would, in the same breath, tell you that right now they're 16-13, and they're actually not as bad as you think. And when you say minor league lineup, maybe it's just because you don't know who any of the guys are. Maybe you should take the time to learn it. Tommy on the Cape. Tommy, go ahead.
Hey, what's up, Maz?
Yeah, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I agree with Mike over there. I think the big problem is that the ownership doesn't want to invest, but they want to milk us dry. And I think you should be embarrassed, because the reason I'm not showing up is because I just don't want to. I don't want to support them buying all these other sports teams.
Tommy, listen again. You can do whatever you want. I'm not telling you to go to the game or not go to the game. I'm just telling you if you find it embarrassing, maybe it's more embarrassing for ownership than it is for you as a fan or as a Bostonian. You don't want to go, don't go. But I think it's embarrassing for the entire city, frankly, if the ballpark gets overrun by visiting fans. That's bad. That's bad. I remember years ago, the Red Sox played a game in Montreal against the Expos when the Expos were still there, and the Expos were kind of an embarrassment. The whole organization was embarrassing. The city was embarrassing for baseball. The Red Sox went up there and played a game. The entire crowd was Red Sox fans. The Astros at that point were averaging like 6,000 fans a game. They had 25,000 at that time. All Red Sox fans from Vermont who had taken over the ballpark. The Expos ultimately moved. Now, I'm not telling you that's not going to happen here, because I don't think it is. And maybe it is more embarrassing for ownership, but don't you think it's a bad look all the way around for the entire city? I mean, at some point, it's a reflection on everybody. Dave in a car. Dave, go.
Hey, Tony, love you. Love your show. Been listening to your years. I love it. But, I mean, you sit there and you say, like, okay, like it's there's everyone else is, in the stands. All these other players, like all these other teams, they have their shirts. You guys rag on that all the time for every other sport. I mean, whatever. It's like it's all like, who's going?
Out-of-towners. Out-of-towners. That's what Fenway is now. It's a tourist destination. People come in from out of town, they take over the ballpark, and they have a nice time over the weekend. In this case, they lost 2 out of 3. But I said this earlier on Felger and Maz. I was at the airport with my 17-year-old son in Chicago, because we went to Chicago for the weekend. He's getting ready to go to college in a year or so. So we're doing the whole college thing. We're waiting at the gate to come home. You know who came off the plane? Cubs fans. Cubs fans. Walking through the terminal in all their Cubs gear, returning home, albeit from a game in which they got their asses kicked 17-0. But nonetheless, it was Cubs fans coming off the plane. This is what people do now. I'm just telling you what Fenway Park has become. Opposing fans now look at the schedule, and they look at Fenway Park and say, oh, we can get tickets because the Red Sox aren't as good as they used to be, and fans there aren't going, so we can take over the ballpark. There are 2 parts of that equation. Ownership is absolutely responsible. If I was John Henry or Tom Werner or Sam Kennedy, I would sit there and go, well, this is kind of embarrassing. But you know what? At the end of the day, they don't really care, because they're selling the tickets to those people instead of to you. So they're getting their money either way. They're going to get it either way. But now Fenway is a place that opposing fans can go to see their team play, take in Boston during the weekend, the way that Red Sox fans used to go to Tampa or Baltimore or any of those places. And it's probably cheaper for them to do it now than it is to see their team play in their own stadium. Certainly true of Chicago. Can't be cheap to go to Wrigley, but they show up there. A lot of people like to go to Wrigley. I get it. It's what Boston is now when it comes to baseball. It's the same thing. Joe's in Arlington. Joe, go ahead.
Hey, Tony. First of all, Tony, it's 100% the ownership's fault. If they're not going to commit financially to the team, why should the fans? I mean, you pay in the highest ticket prices in baseball. The refreshments are ridiculous, and you know. It's kind of a double standard, too, Tony. Don't get me wrong, Tony. I love you.
Joe, don't hang up. Don't hang up. But let me ask you a question. What if the team's better than you think it is?
But, Tony, but it doesn't matter, because at the end, they're not going to win anything. Big deal that they're competitive, right? I mean, is that what we really want? I don't think this city wants to just be competitive. If we're not going to win and ownership's not going to commit, why should we commit?
Okay,
And Tony, the other thing about it is,
so
you
Joe,
know what?
hold on. So again, then you're not going to go to any game where you don't think that a team in Boston can ever win a championship. So you're not going to go to Foxborough this year, or you're not going to go see the Bruins because I don't think they're winning the Cup either.
You know what though? I think you're wrong. I think the Bruins do show command. The Bruins do have a chance to win the Cup. And the Patriots, they're rebuilding, and they're showing they're rebuilding by drafting Drake May. And wait, first of all, going back to my point. So if we fill Fenway Park, right, like we're supposed to, so we're letting ownership off the hook. So why would they ever commit any money?
Okay, so again, they're going to sell the tickets either way. That's sort of how I would look at it. So the question is ultimately, what do you want it to be? And when you say they're rebuilding, the Patriots are rebuilding, so are the Red Sox. And listen, I'm not here defending ownership. Okay, so don't think I'm taking ownership side on it. You don't want to go, don't go. You can do whatever you want. But I don't want to hear anybody bitching about how opposing fans are taking over the ballpark. There is a fan part of that story. And I do think overall, on a grander scale, because we've seen this with the other teams, I also think some of the fans in this market have become spoiled. So anything less than a championship now, you don't want to go. I'll ask the question again. What if the Red Sox are better than you think? And I thought they were going to suck too. I'm surprised so far. And I think Tanner Houck is legit. I opened the show tonight saying that. This Abreu kid can play. What if we were wrong? And I'm not excluding myself. What if we were wrong?
I'll show up in the playoffs. I'll go to the games.
Exactly. It's everybody's attitude now. Jeff in the car. Jeff, what do you got?
That's when I believe.
So, Tony, you keep talking about us complaining about the stadium being filled with Cubs fans. Nobody that has called in, I haven't heard anyone say that except for you. The issue here is not with the fans showing up, because as a fan, here's what I have the ability to do. And you're right, the tickets are still going to sell. It's going to get sold to Cubs fans, to Dodgers fans, and you know what? That's great. It's going to line John Henry's pocket. But in the grand scheme, he's not going to get viewers on NESN because people aren't paying attention to the team. He needs to have Red Sox fans there, and he needs to do what he can to make sure that Red Sox fans show up. So that way we're buying the jerseys, we're doing everything else. And to sit there and say, what if the team is better than we thought it was? Do you know how many times in the last couple of years I've watched this team and said, I think that this team could do it? And you know what they did at the trade deadline? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. And that's why I won't go to as many games. I used to be a season ticket holder. I went to 15, 20 games a year. I can't justify doing it when halfway through the year, even if they're competitive, and you know what? Maybe they won't win it all, but maybe they will at least be in a situation where they could get into a playoff spot and they make August and September baseball fun. What does the ownership do? Absolutely nothing. So they won't add to the team.
Jeff, you have every right to say that. They've lost your trust. I get it. But don't delude yourself into saying that what if they play well, what if they surprise you? You'll be back. You'll be back because you want to be back. And it's a fair point to say that no one is saying that the Fenway Park's being overrun. I'm just telling you there's a second part of the equation other than the fact that ownership hasn't put a representative team on the field. They haven't. It's why Alex Cora wants out of here. But what if this turns out to be better than we think, and then you get late in the year? You're going to go then? The thing about the money and what it costs you to go to the ballpark, believe me, I get it. It's expensive. It's not really what you care about. I mean, it's partially what you care about. I don't want to minimize the financial impact on people to go to a ball game. If they were good and you believed in them, you'd go. You'd find a way to go. So the real issue is that you don't believe in them. That part is on them. That part's on them. But I personally think that when at Fenway Park, home of the Red Sox, allegedly, who have the best fans in baseball, that other teams can come in and overrun the ballpark? Their fans can overrun the ballpark? I don't ever remember that happening in my lifetime. Ever. Jim in Medford. Jim, go ahead.
Hey, Tony, you're saying, well, let's put it this way. You said, what happens if they're better than we expected? Well, most people are expecting them to be below 500. And competitive in August and September, I don't think that's going to happen. Not with this team. They're not spending. And then you say, well, it's allegedly the best fans in baseball. Well, that's on the ownership. That's not about the fans. I don't know if we are the best fans of baseball. We're pretty up there according to opposing teams.
Yeah, I can help you. You're not. You're not. There was a time when you were. The St. Louis fans are to me, are much more live and die with the Cardinals than Red Sox fans are with the Red Sox now. Rich and Millbury. Rich, go ahead.
Yeah, you're talking about the Cubs fans going to Fenway?
Yes.
Well, my wife and I are taking a trip to Nashville, and we're going to stop in St. Louis and see the Red Sox game May 18th.
Against the Cardinals?
Yes.
Oh, how many Red Sox fans do you think? How many Red Sox fans do you think will be with you there, Rich?
I don't know, but I'm not going to wear a Red Sox hat just in case.
That's my kind of guy. Something tells me you're not going to overrun the ballpark the way they've done here the last couple of years when visiting teams have come in. Really? Seriously? Did any Texas Rangers fans overran Fenway Park last year? Again, ownership should be embarrassed about that too. You're telling me as a Bostonian and as an alleged Red Sox fan that you're not embarrassed by that? I'm embarrassed tomorrow.
This is the Baseball Hour with Tony Maz.
In a world filled with financial information, Citizens can help you make sense of it. So whether you're listening to that new financial podcast that's hotter than your morning coffee, flipping through that financial guru's 1,000-page book on simple finances, or getting tips from a coworker that actually sound kind of interesting, you're ready to make the most of it. Make sense of your money with Citizens. Learn more at citizensbank.com/made-ready.
Fossil fuel rebates and 0% financing are expiring. If you have been considering replacing your boiler, furnace, or water heater, now would be the time. This is Ryan with 128. Natural gas, propane, and oil will no longer be eligible for Mass Save benefits as of April 30th of this year. If you've been considering updating your system to receive these benefits, now is a great time. Our team is standing by to help answer any questions you may have and ensure that you're receiving what you are eligible for. As the program comes to a close, we want to make sure that you are finishing strong. We're here to help at 128.
If Heineken Silver was a 60-second radio ad, it'd tell you all the stuff you need to know in only 30 seconds to keep things light and refreshing. Seriously, time me. Heineken Silver, a world-class light beer that's surprisingly crisp and refreshing, made with only premium quality ingredients and just 2.9 grams of carbs and 95 calories, all without compromising on taste. Heineken Silver, all the taste, no bitter endings. Order now at Heineken.com/silver. Must be 21 and older to purchase. Enjoy Heineken responsibly. Whew, 30 seconds, that's it. Done. Peace.
If you need tires, think Town Fair Tire. Thinking name brands? We have them all. Thinking price? We beat the competitors. Free services? We have those too. For the guaranteed lowest price, nobody beats Town Fair Tire. Nobody.
Town Fair Tire. This is Toby from Wendy's, and this is everything in our new loaded breakfast burrito. 2 fresh cracked eggs, 6 strips of bacon, seasoned breakfast potatoes, cheese sauce, tortilla. Whew, now that's a breakfast burrito.
Only at participating U.S. Wendy's. It's Truck Month at your local Ram dealer, and now's the time to get great deals on our award-winning lineup of trucks. At Ram, all we do is trucks. Maybe that's why Ram is the most awarded